Before we begin, let yourself relax. Let your hands grow still. Let your breath soften, just like a feather settling slowly onto a velvet cushion. There is nothing you need to do right now. Nowhere you need to go. This is your time for stillness, for peace, for rest. Feel the quiet curl around you like a warm woolen cloak. Imagine the softest wind, a sighing breeze that stirs the tips of tall grass. Let it brush across your cheeks and carry away the last of the day's noise. Each breath in, gentle. Each breath out, slower, softer. Sink deeper now. And now, our story begins. Beneath a starlit sky, in a forgotten part of the realm, beyond the greenest hills and the oldest trees, there stood a lonely tower of stone. It rose from a meadow, brushed with moonlight, tall and narrow, with ivy creeping across its base, like fingers reaching for a dream. This was the turret of Sir Edric of Lyn. But Edric was not like other knights. He bore no scars from battle. He wore no armor crusted in blood or soot. Instead, he wore a robe of midnight blue, trimmed with silver thread that shimmered when he turned his shoulders toward the stars. For Edric was a watcher of the sky. Each night, while the world slumbered in cottages and castles alike, Edric climbed the winding steps of his turret, step by step, his boots brushing stone-worn smooth from years of quiet walking. At the top, he would light only a single candle, just one placed carefully, in a holder shaped like a blooming flower, and he would sit beneath the great window, looking out, up, to the endless velvet above. Let your thoughts melt away now. Let them slip like water through cupped hands. You don't have to hold anything anymore. Not plans, not questions, not even dreams. Just listen. Feel the hush between each breath. The way the night wraps around your body, soft and warm and safe. Now return with me to the quiet tower where Sir Edric lives, where the stars are more than lights in the sky. They are memories and maps and music that no one else hears quite the same. Our story now curls like smoke from a chimney, slow, soft, and rising. The sun had risen, but not fully. Its early light painted the tower stones in hues of peach and faded rose colors that soft every edge. Sir Edric moved slowly this morning. He'd slept, but his mind had kept walking the stars. That message still rested on his desk. You are not alone. He hadn't moved it. He hadn't dared. Some things aren't to be tucked away too quickly. They must rest in the air a while, like incense after prayer. He knelt beside the hearth now. The fire was low, nothing more than the memory of embers nestled in ash. He stirred them gently with an iron poker wrought in the shape of a griffiness clawed. The flame caught slowly, where there came warmth and light, and the familiar scent of oak and rosemary to the endless velvet above. The people in his village called him the knight who counted stars, some with fondness, some with a puzzled smile. But Edric didn't mind, for in the old days, long before maps were drawn and compasses refined, had studied the heavens, they believed the stars guided not only their journeys, but their choices, their oaths, their hearts. Edric had once held a sword. He had once trained in the yard, beneath a sun that made the steel shine like ice. But it was not the weight of metal that called to him. It was the slow turning of constellations, the rhythm of night, the stories written in light. And so Edric chose stillness. He chose wonder. He chose the stars. Tonight, the sky was perfectly clear. A pale lavender glow lingered at the horizon, fading slowly into navy, then indigo, then the deepest blue, like ink poured over the world. The kind of sky that feels endless, the kind that hushes even the owls. Edric sat at his desk, where an old parchment lay open beside an astrolabe's brass arms ticking ever so softly when turned. He reached for it now, slowly, with practiced care. Click, click. The delicate sound echoed faintly in the stone chamber, like water droplets tapping on marble. He adjusted the dials, aligning them with the northern star. Polaris, always steady, always present, a quiet guardian of the sky. Outside, the breeze rustled through cypress trees. The leaves shimmered with dew, catching faint glimmers of starlight like scattered pearls on dark velvet. Somewhere far below, a fox padded softly across the field, its paws silent on the mossy earth. Everything was hushed. Everything was waiting, and Edric watched. He had names for every constellation, not just the ones found in dusty scrolls or ancient books, but names whispered only to himself, names that felt like lullabies. There was the sleeping stag, curled just above the tree, and the maid's lantern, a flickering arc of stars near the eastern ridge, and the swan's breath, a silver sweep across the center of the heavens. These were not simply stars. They were companions, guides, old friends who returned night after night to remind him of patterns, of peace, of the slow and gentle turning of time. Edric leaned back, the old wooden chair creaking softly beneath him, in silence. He rested one boot on the window ledge, arms crossed loosely, breath slow. From here, the sky filled his vision. Nothing but stars. He remembered something once told to him by the old abbess of the monastery just beyond the hills. She had said, "The stars are prayers that never had to be spoken aloud." And Edric believed it. For in these quiet hours, when the rest of the world lay dreaming, it was as though the stars were speaking to him, not in words, but in hushes, in presence, in quiet. A comet had been appearing in the southern sky the past fortnight, just barely visible now. A faint smudge, trailing a soft tail of light behind it. Edric tracked it each night, marking its path with delicate ink silver on black vellum. He didn't know where it would lead, but he liked that. Some things weren't meant to be captured, only observed, only wondered at. He set down his quill and folded his hands in his lap, gazing upward. The stars did not hurry. They never did. So did Edric. They took their time, always. And beneath their watchful shimmer, far away, a wolf howled once. A low, longing sound carried through the valleys, then gone. The night deepened, and still Edric watched. He did not chase dragons. He did not ride into war, but each night he drifted through skies made of memory and light. And you, too, may drift now. Let your thoughts be stars. Let them rise, one by one, until the sky behind your eyes glows gently with quiet wonder. Feel the cool stone of the tower, the softness of starlight across your skin, the silence of a world at rest. Let go. Sleep. Let yourself drift. Even deeper now. You don't need to hold on to the day anymore. It has done all it needed to do, and you are safe. The quiet of the night is cradling you now, soft as lamb's wool, gentle as a breeze across an empty field. Feel the silence, the calm presence of the stars, and let yourself lean into the stillness, just like Edric, sitting peacefully in his tower, watching the sky turn, slowly, quietly, just for him. Our story continues now, where the heavens unfold like a painted scroll. The hour grew late, so Edric listened to the soft ticking of his candle how. It melted slowly, the wax pooling in warm golden spirals, catching shadows against the stone. He had always loved this hour, not midnight, not dawn, but the place between, the time when even the wind seemed to sleep, and the stars sang to those who remembered how to listen. He reached for a small velvet pouch, tied with braided twine. Inside were polished stones, each etched with a different star sign, but they held meaning. There was Capra, the goat, Corona Borealis, the crown, Aquilo, the north wind, and Lumen, the wandering light. He laid them in a crescent shape before him on the desk, just as he had done since boyhood. This was how he mapped his thoughts, not through words, but through the shapes of the sky. Outside, the meadow was thick with silence. Even the fox had paused its hunt and curled beneath the roots of an old oak tree, nose tucked beneath its tail. A slow fog had begun to drift across the field. The kind of mist that touches your ankles like whispers from the earth. Edric could see it from his window-soft silver threads, winding between tree trunks, catching faint beams of moonlight. Above it all, the sky deepened. Each star grew bolder, brighter. Not loud, never loud, but clear like a bell rung. Only once, Edric rose from his chair. His joints creaked softly. He wasn't old, but he had sat too long in the cool air. He moved to the arched window and leaned his arms on the stone sill. The breeze touched his face, cool and kind. Somewhere, in a language only the stars spoke, the night whispered secrets. He remembered a phrase written in a tattered scroll he once found at the monastery, one that he kept beside his bed to this day. The heavens are the mind of the world, and the stars its thoughts. It had stayed with him, more than battle hymn, more than training chants. This quiet idea that the sky was thinking, and that maybe, if one listened long enough, it would think to them. Tonight, he thought he might have heard something. Not a sound, not exactly, but a feeling, a hush that seemed to settle just a little deeper than before. A pause in the rhythm of the turning stars. He traced his eyes along the horizon, slowly, gently, letting his gaze follow the curve of the moon's path. There was something, a new flicker, a single point of light, not quite where it should be, just to the left of the Maiden's Lantern constellation. Pale gold, soft, not a star he had named before. He leaned forward, breath held. Was it a wandering star? A nova? A trick of the eyes? Or something else? He marked it carefully on a fresh piece of parchment, dipping his quill into the silver ink with slow precision. The parchment crackled faintly as he smoothed it. He wrote the date, the position. A soft note appeared gently. No tremor, slight westward drift. Then he leaned back again and watched. He did not wish to chase it, only to know it, to see it in this moment, to witness something the world might never notice. Far below the tower, a small village dog barked once, then fell quiet. A single bell in the chapel rang out, a sleepy chime. 3 o'clock. The stars didn't move quickly, and neither did Edric. Not now. He poured himself a measure of warmed mead from a small iron pot set near the hearth. It tasted of clove and honey, and a hint of something ancient like moss and memory. He drank slowly, letting the warmth fill his chest, letting the quiet fill his mind. Then he returned to the window. The new light was still there, not blinking, not flaring, just steady, like a secret keeping itself company. Edric smiled faintly. It felt like a gift, one that did not ask to be owned, only noticed. He settled once more into his chair, drawing a woolen cloak across his shoulders. The candle had grown short. Its flame was low, casting long shadows across the wooden floor. The shadows of the astrolabe danced like hourglass sand. His eyes grew heavy, not from exhaustion, but from contentment, a fullness in the soul, the kind that only silence and stars and stillness could provide. And you, dear listener, you, too, are watching the stars now. Even with your eyes closed, you can feel them above you. You can sense their calm, their gentle, unhurried glow. Breathe in, feel the hush. Breathe out, let go. Float a little further now, into sleep, into quiet. The stars will keep watch, as they always have, as they always will. Let the breath move like a soft tide, in and out, like waves against a quiet shore. You are not thinking now, only drifting, only listening. The candle is low, the world is still, and your body is floating like a feather upon velvet dusk. Now imagine we return to the lonely tower of Suret, where silence is a friend, and the stars have begun to whisper once again. The tower itself had grown old with Edric. Its stones had been laid by hands long since returned to the earth, and though vines crawled its lower walls and birds sometimes nested in its eaves, it still stood straight, proud, quietly enduring the turning of centuries. There was a warmth in its age, a hush in its history. You could feel it in the way the walls held echoes of voices, long past whispers in a stairwell, forgotten footsteps etched into the stone. When Edric walked the tower, he never felt alone. Not haunting, but comforting. The quiet presence of memory wrapped around him, like the scent of worn books, like the hush of a chapel at dusk. The turret had once belonged to his great-grandfather, a knight, yes, but one who had also studied the phases of the moon. In the old journals Edric kept in a cedar chest near the hearth, his great-grandfather had written notes in faded ink. When the moon is waning, the mind turns inward. The stars above the southern ridge shift with the winds of the soul. There is no map like the one written in light. Edric loved those pages, not because they were precise, but because they dreamed. And so did he. Tonight, Edric placed a hand on the stone beside his desk. It was cool, solid, and somehow still alive with memory. He wondered how many others had watched the sky from this very spot. How many had stared upward, eyes filled with awe and stillness. He liked imagining them knights and monks, midwives, and shepherds all glancing skyward in the deep of night, all searching for something just beyond reach, and perhaps finding it in the hush between heartbeats. The candle was nearly gone now. Its golden pool of wax trembled as the wind curled through the open window. Soft as breath, Edric let it flicker. He did not fear the dark. The dark was not empty. It was full of stars, of stories, of quiet things that waited to be seen. He pulled another chart from beneath the desk. This one was older, drawn by hand on dark parchment, lined with sweeping curves and spiraling glyphs. Not just stars but winds, currents, moon tides, symbols of the unseen. He had once believed these to be nonsense, but now he saw them differently. Perhaps they weren't meant to be understood. Perhaps they were meant to be felt, like the way your chest rises when you look at the night sky, or how your eyes well up when silence speaks louder than sound. He traced a single spiral with his finger. It was said that the spiral represented the path of thought, or the movement of time, or the secret shape of dreaming. He liked that last one best. The secret shape of dreaming. From the tower, he could see the hills curled gently in sleep. The trees along the ridge swayed faintly, their shadows long and delicate. The grass shimmered faintly with teeny stars scattered across the earth. He had always believed the land mirrored the sky, and tonight, it did. Each glimmer below was like a reflection of those above. Two worlds, breathing together in perfect stillness. A soft knock sounded once at the heavy wooden door below. Unhurried, Edric stood and descended the spiral stair, hand brushing the cold stone as he walked. The tower never rushed, and neither did he. When he reached the door, he opened it gently. There was no one there, only the breeze, and a single feather on the ground, long, white, and glinting faintly in the starlight. He bent to pick it up. It was warm, as if it had only just fallen. He held it between two fingers, turning it slowly. A swan's feather, he thought, or something like it. He looked up. Nothing. Only the trees swaying gently, and the wide, infinite night. He returned to the turret, placing the feather beside his charts. Another gift, unexplained, but not unwelcome. Some things were not meant to be questioned, only cherished. The stars above shifted ever so slightly. The mysterious new point of light remained, holding its place just outside the familiar constellation. It pulsed softly now, not brighter, not dimmer, just alive. Edric smiled again. He would name it soon, but not tonight. Tonight was for wonder, not for labeling. Tonight was for being, and you are floating now, safe and slow, like a feather on a breeze. Let the hush of the tower cradle you. Let the memory of old stone and ancient stars and whispered spirals settle into your thoughts. There is no hurry. You are exactly where you need to be. The stars are turning, and so are you. Into rest, into quiet, into peace. Sink even further now. Let your arms fall heavy. Let your thoughts flutter like old leaves, drifting down into the hush. You don't need to remember anything right now. Just feel the stillness. Let the quiet carry you. You are deep inside the night, held in a place where nothing is rushed. Everything is gentle. Everything is slow. Let the stars hold you, the way they held the way they hold the world. Softly, silently, always. Our story drifts forward now. Like parchment caught in a midnight breeze, the morning sun had not yet risen, but a faint blue edge touched the horizon, a quiet hint of the day to come. In the tower, Sir Edric stirred only slightly, his woolen cloak still gathered around him. He had fallen asleep in his chair. A quill rested loosely in one hand, an unfinished note beneath it, silver ink trailing off mid. The words read, "I think it breathes." The candle had long since gone out. Only the light of the stars and the first breath of dawn lit the room. There was a soft flutter, a sound so delicate it might have been imagined. Edric's eyes opened slowly, lashes brushing against his cheek. For a moment, he wasn't sure if he was still dreaming. Then he saw it, a slip of parchment folded in thirds, resting at the edge of the windowsill. It had not been there before. No seal, no ink on the outside, just a pale cream color. The texture rough, fibrous, handmade. He blinked again, then rose carefully, as if afraid the moment might vanish if he moved too quickly. He picked up the paper, turning it gently in his fingers. The edge was cool with dew. He unfolded it. Inside, written in small, looping script that shimmered faintly in the growing light, were 4 simple words. "You are not alone." That was all. No name, no signature, no mark of the sender, just those words, written in silver. And for a long time, Edric simply stared at them. He felt no fear, only a hush, a presence, something that pressed gently against the edges of the moment, as though the stars themselves had spoken, or the sky, or some soft, forgotten spirit who had lingered long after its time. He read the words again. "You are not alone." The quiet in the tower deepened. Even the winds seemed to still listening. He set the note beside the feather on his desk. The two looked like they belonged together. Light and lighter still. Whisper and wing. He thought of the new star again. Still faint. Still just outside the constellation where it did not belong. A visitor. An outlier. A watcher. Like him, he poured a fresh cup of water from a clay jug and sipped slowly, grounding himself. Outside, the horizon glowed with a pearl-pale blush, the blue giving way to rose, and then to gold. It would soon be morning. But not quite yet. This was the space between his favorite time. He stepped outside for the first time that night, barefoot, quiet. The grass was cool beneath his feet, soaked with dew, each blade shining like a single dream caught in the open. The fox had gone. The owl had vanished. The trees whispered faintly in the new light. Above, the stars had begun to fade, one by one, like candles being gently snuffed. But the new star, it was still there, soft, steady, refusing to vanish. Edric stood there, arms folded lightly across his chest, and whispered, "I see you." He reached toward the back of the hearth, now his arm wrapped in thick cloth, for the stones were warm. And there, behind the last brick on the right, he found what he was looking for. A book, wrapped in oilcloth, hidden away. He hadn't touched it in years. It was his mother's. She had died when he was still a squire, but her stories never left him. She had been no knight, no scholar, just a baker's daughter, with eyes like thunderclouds, and a voice soft as candle smoke. But she had loved the stars. She'd said they were the letters of the sky, and that if you looked long enough, you'd learn to read them. He peeled the cloth back. The book was old, bound in faded green leather, cracked along the spine. Its pages smelled of dust and time, and something sweeter still perhaps. Lavender, perhaps memory. Inside, her handwriting curved gently across the parchment in faded brown ink. Not scientific, not scholarly, but reverent, lovin'. like lullabies stitched into paper. He read aloud softly. Tonight I saw the Archer's Gate. It shimmered low on the horizon, just above the barn's edge. I think it winked at me. And another. There are some stars I do not recognize, but I believe they recognize me. He smiled. That one he understood. Turning the pages, he found little pressed flowers, long since faded petals like tissue. Brittle, but still intact. She had catalogued nights, not in numbers or degrees, but in feelings. A night that smelled of mint and sorrow. A sky that felt like warm tea after walking in rain. It wasn't science, but it was truth. Her truth. And perhaps that mattered even more. He tucked the mysterious one between two of the pages, and closed the book gently. Then he wrapped it again, and placed it not behind the hearth, this time, but on the top of his desk, in the open, where it could breathe. Some things were no longer meant to be hidden. The morning passed in silence. No letters, no knocks, only the turning of time and the quiet rhythm of the tower itself. Edric sipped from his clay mug tea now, steeped with rosemary and dried apple slices. He wasn't watching the stars. Not yet. Today felt different, like something had shifted beneath the skin of the world. Not loudly, but certainly. He stood at the edge of the spiral stairs and looked down into the dim heart of the tower. The stones hummed in a way he'd never quite noticed before. Not with sound, but with presence, as if the place itself were waiting and always had been. He returned to his window and opened the shutters wide. Sunlight spilled across the room like honey. And yet, even in the light, he could feel it. That hush, that mystery, the more behind things. He let the breeze carry his thoughts now. He watched the trees sway gently. He listened to the bird song just beginning. But inside he was still watching stars. Even when they could not be seen, he whispered again, to no one, or to everyone, "You are not alone." And in the silence that followed, he felt those words settle around him, like a cloak, like warmth, like starlight that never quite fades. And you are wrapped in that same hush now. Let your body soften like petals in moonlight. Let your breath slow like the turning of the stars. You do not need answers tonight. Only calm, only stillness, only this moment. And maybe that same whisper, softly echoing in your chest. You are not alone. The breath is slower now. Let it deepen, gently, without effort, in and out. Like the slow sway of a tree on a windless night. You are cradled in quiet, wrapped in warmth, safe beneath a sky of velvet blue. There's nothing more to do, only to listen, only to drift, only to feel yourself growing lighter with each word. Let us return to the tower, to the knight who does not wield his sword anymore, but instead wields stillness. Our story stirs again like curtains parting in a soft, unseen breeze. The wind came that afternoon. Not loud, not cold, but new. It curled around the tower like a ribbon, sliding through the open window, brushing along the stone floor, and lifting a single corner of Edric's parchment. He turned, feeling it before he saw it. The feather beside the silver-inked message had shifted, not fallen, not blown away. Just turned, slightly, as if it were listening. The wind carried a scent with it, when Edric hadn't smelled in years. Bay leaf, and earth after rain, and something sweeter still, like wild heather growing in forgotten places. He closed his eyes and let it pass through him. There were stories, old ones, whispered by weather-worn monks, that said winds had names, not just directions, but souls. This one, he thought, might be called the Orin, or something even older. He stepped to the window and looked outward. The fields bent under the breeze, swaying like a sea of green and gold. Clouds drifted low and soft, not gray, not white, but the color of worn parchment and fresh milk. And in the distance, something moved. A figure on the path, walking slowly, as though they too were following the breeze. Edric didn't stir. He only watched. There was no fear in him, only wonder. The figure came closer. Not hurried, not hidden. They wore a cloak, the color of ash bark, and walked with a staff carved in spirals. A pilgrim, perhaps, or a bard, or something else altogether. When the figure reached the tower door, they did not knock. They placed something gently on the step, then turned and walked away again. The breeze curled around them like a scarf, and they vanished into the hills, as though they had always belonged there. Edric moved down the stairs, not with urgency, but with reverence. When he opened the door, the wind touched his face, warm and familiar, and at his feet rested a small satchel made of linen, tied with twine. He lifted it. It weighed nearly nothing, was a single item, a compass, but not an ordinary one. Its casing was wood, smoothed with time, and etched with symbols he could not immediately place. Inside the glass, a needle pointed not north, but somewhere slightly west of sky. He tilted it, then steered it again. Toward nothing. Toward something. Toward wonder. There was no note, no markings, just the compass and the breeze. He brought it to his desk, setting it gently beside the feather and the folded message. The feather, the message, the star, and now this. 3 gifts. No explanations. Only a quiet unfolding. He thought again of his mother's book. He opened it to a page he hadn't read in years. There, in her delicate script, was a line he had long forgotten. Sometimes the sky does not send signs. It sends invitations. He smiled and looked again at the compass. The tower had never felt more alive. Not noisy, not bright, but brimming with meaning, with rhythm, with possibility. The wind slipped through the window again. It made the candle flicker, and the flame danced. Then the room grew still once more, and Edric whispered, "I accept." To no one, to everyone, to whatever had begun to speak in feathers, and stars, and quiet wooden compasses. He leaned back in his chair and listened to the wind disappear. And somewhere, far off, a bell rang. Not from the village, but from somewhere older, somewhere deeper, perhaps inside himself. And you are closer now, to the hush, to the glow. Let yourself sink like a stone into warm velvet water. Let the images drift across your mind like clouds across a pale sky. A feather turning, a compass spinning, a breeze with a name. These things are yours now, too. Gifts from a quiet world, where stories travel on the wind and sleep follows gently behind. Settle again now. Deeper, softer, slower. Let the body grow heavy with stillness. Let the breath trail like candle smoke. And out. In and out. This part of the night is weightless. You're floating gently, suspended in peace. No thoughts need tending. No questions need answers. You are simply here, held by the hush, and ready to drift further into this starlit tale. Our story walks onward now, along a path, worn soft with time. The compass sat still upon the desk. Its needle, though motionless, had not lost its presence. Sir Edric watched it from across the room, his cup of tea cooling in his hand. Something inside him had begun to shift. It wasn't that he felt pulled to move, not in body, not yet, but in thought, in heart, as if a long-closed gate had creaked open in the chambers of his chest. By evening, the sky had returned to velvet. The stars blinked back into their familiar place. Is he one like a sigh returning home? And just above the edge of the turret's view, the strange new star still lingered. Its light was the same, soft, gentle, but no longer distant it seemed. Closer, as if it had noticed him noticing it. Edric returned to the windowsill. The air was cool, touched with a thin veil of mist, the kind that gathers only in ancient places, where stories are thick in the soil. He glanced at the feather, then at the compass, then back to the sky, and the idea came softly, not as a command, but as an invitation, not to battle beyond the tower. He gathered a cloak woven in threads of indigo and russet trimmed in fur so old it had forgotten its origin. He placed the compass in a pouch of lambskin and tied it to his belt. Then he opened the tower's door and stepped out into the night. The path was the same one he had walked in boyhood. It wound gently through the grass, then dipped toward the brook. The trees stood still on either side, like sentinels in thought. Their leaves whispered nothing urgent, only welcome. And above, the stars walked with him. His boots made soft sounds on the earth. Not crunching, not thudding, just a steady hush, like breath made into footsteps. The compass never pulled hard. Its needle only drifted subtly each time the path split, pointing, not like a command, but like a knowing glance. He obeyed without question. Each turn felt like remembering, each fork like a choice he'd already made long ago. Soon the tower was behind him, hidden by folds in the land. Ahead, a hill he'd never noticed rose gently to meet him, rounded and smooth, like a sleeping shoulder. He climbed it slowly. The grass brushed against his hands, and as he crested the hill, he stopped. At the top stood a tree, not large, not twisted, just perfect. Its bark was pale and smooth, its limbs stretched wide like arms reaching toward the sky, and all around its base, wildflowers bloomed. Even in this late season, bluebells, chamomile, queen's lace, their fragrance drifted like lullabies in bloom. Edric stepped into the ring of petals and sat. He placed a compass on the ground before him and looked up. The stars above this hill were even brighter than at the tower, clearer, more intimate. And there, still, the unfamiliar one shimmered, just above the tree's highest branch. He sat in silence. Minutes passed, or hours. Time was not invited here. Only stillness, only wonder. At some point, he reached into his pouch and withdrew a small scrap of parchment, and using the ink he always kept tucked in a reed tube, he wrote only one thing: "I have come." Then he folded it gently and tucked it beneath the root of the tree. He didn't know why, only that it felt right, like adding his own whisper to a long conversation. The breeze came again. Not strong, not chilled, just a sigh, like a secret being shared by the sky. He closed his eyes, leaned back, let the stars pour over him like warm rain. Let the hush of the petals press into his skin. Let the breath of the tree wrap around his shoulders like an old friend. And in that moment, he was not a knight, not a watcher, not even a man. He was simply stillness and softness and sky. Let yourself rest now on your own quiet hill. Let your breath grow deeper, slower, gentler. Imagine the stars above, watching over you like soft, ancient eyes. Imagine the tree, arms open in eternal welcome. Imagine the petals beneath your hands and the hush all around you. You have come to it, and that is enough. Close your eyes now. If you haven't already, let the lids grow heavy, like velvet drapes drawn at twilight. Let your breathing find the rhythm of a lullaby. A hush, a hush, a hush. You are so deeply at rest. Not here, not there, but somewhere just between, floating like a feather, listening like a star, and the story, it carries you still. Our tale continues beneath a sky filled with secrets, where nothing is rushed, and every silence means something. So Edric remained beneath the tree until the stars began to shift in their silent way. He watched them move not hurriedly, but like dancers in a slow, ancient ritual. The unfamiliar star still shone, but now, something else had joined it. A second light, fainter, to its left. At first, Edric thought his eyes had blurred from the breeze, but then he blinked, and the second light remained. He sat up straighter. He held his breath. The two stars twinkled together, not in a straight line, not part of any known constellation, just near each other. Close, like hands, almost touching. He whispered softly, "You brought a friend." And the wind answered by stirring the chamomile petals at his feet. He reached for his pouch again, Another scrap of parchment. Another line of ink. You are multiplying. He tucked it beside the first note, beneath the root. The roots did not protest. They only held it, gently, like the earth itself had become a keeper of letters. He did not expect answers. Not anymore. Only presence. Only unfolding. Only wonder. The moon began to rise now, soft and gold like a candle behind silk. It poured its light across the hillside, touching the flowers, the bark of the tree, the curve of Edric's cheek. And in that moment, he remembered something. A line from a tale he had once heard whispered between traveling monks. There's a place where the sky keeps its secrets, and those who sit still long enough are invited to overhear them. He had always believed that place was elsewhere, some far-off peak, or long-lost ruin, or holy garden tucked behind monastery walls. But now, here, with a tree, and a hill, and two stars that didn't belong, he wondered, what if the place wasn't a location? What if it was a moment? What if it was this one? This breath? This silence? This stillness? What if the sky had chosen him to overhear? His eyes filled not with tears, exactly, but with something older than sorrow and older than joy, a quiet awe, like standing at the edge of a vast ocean and realizing it sees you, too. He leaned back again and let his body melt into the curve of the earth. Above him, the stars pulsed softly, a slow heartbeat only the very still can feel. He watched them. He listened, and at last, he closed his eyes. When he opened them again, time had passed. He wasn't sure how much. The moon had climbed higher, and the wind had quieted, but something new had arrived. At the base of the tree, just beside where he tucked the parchment note, a small leather pouch rested, as if someone or something had gently placed it there while he dozed. He sat up slowly, blinking. The pouch was sealed with a simple knot of twine. No note, no markings, only the faint smell of lavender and sage, as though it had been kept beside herbs in a warm, dry place. He opened it. Inside, wrapped in wool cloth, was a single stone, no larger than a plum, polished smooth, cool to the touch, and etched faintly with the shape of a star knot. A perfect one, but a spiral, as if the star had been seen through water or dream. He turned it in his hands. The markings were old, weathered, but not worn away. It looked as though it had been carried by time. He didn't speak, didn't write. He only sat there, the stone in his palm, and listened again. The hill said nothing, but it welcomed him. The tree said nothing, but its branches swayed slightly, even without wind. And the sky only watched. He placed the stone beside the feather in his pouch, and gently, almost reverently tied it, closed again. He did not ask who had brought it, or why, or how, because some things are not questions. They are gifts, and all you can do is receive. He stood then, feeling the night press softly around his shoulders like a cloak woven of breath and dreams. He looked once more at the stars, and yes, the second unfamiliar star was still there, still glowing, still near the first, and Edric felt a sense of certainty rise in his chest. Something had begun, and it was not yet finished. And you, too, have received a gift tonight, not made of stone or starlight, but of calm, of quiet, of stillness. Return to the heart. Let your body settle deeper into your resting place. Let your thoughts drift away like petals on a stream. You are the hill. You are the hush. You are the watcher beneath the sky that keeps its secrets. And one of those secrets was meant for you. Take a deep breath now, deeper than the last. Let your chest rise like the swell of a gentle tide and fall again and again. You are drifting softly, as if the earth itself had exhaled and carried you into quiet. You are wrapped in stillness, not alone, but gently accompanied by stars, by memory, by the rhythm of a night's heart beneath a sky of wonder. Our story folds open once more, like a letter left at the edge of dreams. Sir Edric descended the hill in silence. He did not look back at the tree, though he felt its presence behind him like a hand resting lightly between his shoulders. The stone in his pouch seemed to glow with a quiet warmth, and as he walked, the compass swayed slightly from his belt, its needle steady, always pointing toward the same invisible invitation. By the time he reached the tower, mist had gathered low across the fields. It pooled in hollows and drifted lazily through the grass, catching the moonlight like lace draped across the land. He opened the tower door with care, as though re-entering a sacred space. He didn't light a lamp. The moonlight was enough. He moved barefoot now, the stone floor cool beneath his feet. The silence inside complete, but not empty. No, not empty. There was a presence in the tower that night. Not seen, not heard, but felt. Not to frighten, only to wait, like someone standing just behind you. He paused at the base of the stairwell. Something told him not to go up just yet. Instead, he moved toward the hut. The coals were cold now, blanketed in gray ash. But when he touched the iron poker, he found it warm. Not hot, not glowing, but not cold either, like someone had just stirred it minutes ago. Perhaps less. He did not speak. He only looked around the room, and then noticed a mark in the ash. Tiny, delicate, a footprint, but not shaped like a human foot. More like the soft paw of a bird, or a very small creature, four-toed and feathered. He crouched down and stared at it. It didn't belong to any animal he knew. Not fox, not hare, not owl. And yet it was familiar, like something he'd read about long ago. He rose slowly and walked toward his desk. And there, upon the parchment where he had left the message, "You are not alone." There was a second line now, in the same silver ink. Unsmudged, delicate, still wet. It read, "Nor are you forgotten." His breath caught in his chest, not with fear, but with a kind of reverence. Something had been here. Not long ago, not hours, minutes, perhaps seconds. He turned his head slowly, with a single feather. It was unlike the one he had found before. That one had been simple. This one was different, longer, tapered like a quill, and threaded through with colors that shimmered as he moved. Indigo, gold, a faint shimmer of pearl. As if a peacock had kissed the night and left behind a token, he picked it up carefully. It was warm, not from the sun, not from the hearth, but from something else. Presence. He turned it in his fingers, then held it to the candle, not to burn it, just to watch. And when he did, he saw tiny lettering etched along the shaft, almost invisible. So fine, it seemed etched by moonlight itself. He squinted to read. The letters were old tongue, but he recognized them. They read, "The watcher becomes the light." He held still for a long time after that. The tower did not speak, but the air was thick with meaning. He felt the weight of lineage, of legacy, of something ancient finally waking. He did not know if this visitor had been bird, or spirit, or something stranger still. But he knew this. It had not come to test him, or harm him, or even answer him, only to remind that he was part of something larger, something woven. He placed the feather beside the stone, and beside the feather, he laid a new piece of parchment. He dipped his quill in ink, and wrote, simply, "I will keep watching." Then he folded the paper into thirds, and placed it on the sill, where the wind could find it, or the stars, or whatever had come in the night. He sat by the window until the candle flickered low. He listened to the breeze, now so faint it was more memory than motion. And somewhere, he thought he heard a whistle. High, distant, melodic. Not human, not quite bird, like the sound of a star breathing. He smiled and whispered to the dark, "I hear you, and you too may hear things. Now that you are quiet, now that the world has softened around you, you might hear the hush of wings just out of view. You might feel the presence of something kind. Watch it gently. Let your thoughts fall like feathers. Let your mind drift like ash from a sleepy fire. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. You are becoming the light. Let the hush return now. Let it cover you like a cloak fastened with starlight. Breathe in, like the first cool air of midnight. Breathe out, like a candle sighing into sleep. Your thoughts are slowing, like ripples smoothing on a quiet pond. You are ready again to follow the story, like a lantern following footsteps, into calm, into stillness. Our tale unfurls now, like a map, not drawn in ink, but in feeling. The morning after the midnight visitor, Edric awoke before dawn. The candle had burned to a puddle of wax. The sky was pale with coming light, and the silver message still glowed faintly on the parchment. He stood, stretching the quiet from his joints, and walked to the windowsill. The feather remained. So did the wind. So did the silence. But the compass was missing. His heart did not leap with fear. Instead, it opened wider, as though something he loved had stood and walked further into the forest, beckoning him forward. He scanned the desk. The compass was not there. He glanced toward the stair and found, tucked just inside the stone nook at its base, a small scroll. It hadn't been there the night before. Unrolling it, he found no ink, no letters, no marks at all. Just vellum thick, faintly yellow, and worn at the edges. But as the rising light struck its surface, something shimmered. Not drawings, not writing, but paths, lines that seemed to emerge, not from pigment, but from light itself. They shifted as he tilted the scroll, curving, connecting, disappearing again. Drawn in moonlight, or memory, or both. He turned the scroll slowly and began to see a shape form, a tower, a hill, a tree. Then beyond that, a curve of stone, a pool, a ring, and at its edge, the faint impression of a star-shaped etching. He ran his fingers over it. It was cool, smooth, almost like the starstone in his palm. This was not a normal map. It didn't tell you where. It told you how. He laid it flat on the table, weighing the corners with small stones, then reached into his pouch and placed the starstone in its center. And slowly, quietly, the faint light on the scroll shifted, paths adjusted, lines pulsed, and from the center, a glow began to pulse outward. Not bright, not blinding, just enough to see. Like a heartbeat, soft, deliberate. He leaned over and whispered, "Where do I go?" And though the scroll gave no words, he felt an answer. In his chest, in his skin, like music without sound. Follow what does not move. He closed his eyes, trying to understand, and in the dark behind his lids, the image appeared. The tree, the stone ring, the pool, each still, each eternal, not loud, not moving, but powerful, anchors in a shifting world. He opened his eyes again, heart steady. He whispered to the scroll, "I will find it," then rolled it gently, tucking it into a leather tube he kept from his squire days, and set about preparing for the walk. He packed only 3 things: the scroll, the pouch with the feather and starstone, his mother's book of sky thoughts. He wrapped them in cloth, the color of moss, bound with twine, and as he stepped out into the morning air, the mist parted for him, not by force, but by permission. The path led through the field once more, but this time, Edric did not glance behind him. The tower was not something to leave. It was something he now carried inside. The map gave no directions, no distances, only sensations. When he turned to far east, his body felt strained. When he stepped west again, it felt like lying down after standing too long. So he followed the feeling, followed what made the breath easier, what made the wind curl gently around his arms. By mid-morning, he reached a grove of trees he did not remember. They stood close together, slender trunks with pale, smooth bark, their tops rustling like soft chimes. And there, between them, ran a stream. He knelt and cupped water in his palms. It tasted like cold stars and crushed mint just beyond the stream. He saw something rise, a stone arch, half crumbled, covered in moss, not tall, not grand, but ancient, and at its base, a pattern carved in the shape of a spiral star. He stepped through the arch and felt something shift. The wind stilled, the birds quieted, his breath deepened. It was as if the land had noticed him, not with alarm, but with recognition. And you are noticed, too. You are known by the world around you, even in stillness, especially in stillness. Let your breath settle now like soft dust upon stone. Let the hush of the forest wrap around your shoulders. Let the invisible map within you glow guessed faintly, just enough, because something in you remembers the path, even if you've never walked it before. And that is enough. Rest now, even more deeply. Let your body feel heavier, like warm bread beneath a linen cloth. Let your mind soften, like parchment warmed by the sun. You are exactly where you're meant to be. Between the breath, between the stars, inside the story, where still water waits, and the sky whispers in reflection. We return now to the forest's edge. Sir Edric stood in silence beneath the mossless arch. The air was cooler here, still, wrapped in a hush that felt centuries old. He stepped forward. The trees grew wider apart now, and the ground underfoot changed from soil to smooth, flat stone, veined with lichen and golden threads of leaf rot. The sound of water reached him next. Not the rushing kind, not a stream, but stillness, a hush with weight. He followed the sound until the trees opened fully, and there it was, a pool, perfectly round, edges lined with small carved stones, each shaped like a different phase of the moon. And at its center, the water was still as glass. So still, it held the sky within it, perfectly. Every star, every cloud, even the moon, though it was behind him, reflected clearly on the surface, as if the pool knew where it would be. Edric stepped to the edge and knelt. The stone felt warm beneath his knees. He gazed into the water and saw himself, but not as he was, as he had been as a boy. A squire, sitting at the foot of his master, polishing armor, dreaming of battles and honor. Then a flicker. The image shifted. He saw himself as he was now, older, quieter, not broken, but opened, like a book whose pages had finally begun to be read. Then another shift, and the pool no longer reflected him at all, but instead a constellation, one he'd never charted. It spiraled outward like a blooming flower, each star a petal, each petal a choice, and at the center, a tiny glow pulsing like a heartbeat. He reached into his pouch, pulling out and as he held it over the pool, the reflection changed again. The same spiral, but now the stars glowed brighter and began to move. Not quickly, just a slow rotation, as if the sky itself were turning inside the water. And in that motion, something emerged. A shape, a sigil, old as language, a key. He blinked it, was gone, but he had seen it, felt it. Not a literal key, but an answer, or maybe a door. He placed the stone gently in the shallow edge of the pool. It did not sink, only floated, held by the water, cradled like something sacred. He sat back, crossed his legs, and waited, not expecting, not demanding, only listening, only receiving. The forest remained quiet, but not empty. There was a presence here, not watching, not judging, just holding, like the sky had gathered itself into a circle of water to show him who he was, who he had been, and who he might yet become. He reached for his mother's book and opened it at random. The page read, "Some stars do not belong to constellations. They are wild. They wander. But even they have meaning." Edric smiled, then closed the book and whispered aloud, "I am ready." The pool didn't ripple. The water didn't stir. But from behind him, a new sound. Soft footsteps, crunching moss, and fallen needles. Slow, unhurried, he turned, and saw a figure standing just beyond the trees. Cloaked, hooded, holding a staff that glowed faintly where the wood met the earth. They raised one hand, not in greeting, not in warning, but in invitation. He stood slowly, tucked the book beneath his arm, the pouch across his chest, and as he turned to take the stone from the pool, it was gone. But he did not panic, because deep inside his chest, he felt the same warmth. It had moved from object to memory to heart. He bowed slightly toward the pool, then toward the moon-carved stones around its edge, then stepped forward to meet the figure. They said no words, only turned and began to walk. Edric followed. No questions, no fear, only quiet footsteps beneath the leaves, and a slow pulse of starlight in his chest. And you, let your thoughts still now. Like water in a sacred pool, let your memories drift to the surface. Not to be judged, only to be seen. You are not fixed. You are not lost. You are part of something shifting. Something sacred. A story still unfolding in soft, silver ink. Let it write itself across your dreams now. Let yourself reflect. Let yourself glow. Let yourself go. Settle in again. Even deeper than before. Let the muscles loosen like laces undone. Let your breath melt into silence. Let your thoughts float like petals down a stream you do not need to steer. You are drifting now. Not away, but inward, toward a place that has waited patiently for you. And in the stillness ahead, the path continues leading toward a door that was never built, yet always meant to be opened. So Edric followed the cloaked figure through the thinning trees. Their staff tapped the earth softly with each step, not as a sound of warning, but as if reminding the forest they were passing through. Each tree they passed leaned slightly toward them. Each fern bowed, not unnaturally, just subtly, like the forest was recognizing a very old friend. They did not speak, not because there was nothing to say, but because words would only disturb the balance of what was being shared. Edric understood this was not a moment for voices. It was a moment for knowing. The trail narrowed, the light dimmed, and then, without any transition, they were standing before a stone wall, not part of any building, just there, in the middle of the forest, like the back of a forgotten chapel. Moss covered, cracked, yet strangely radiant. The figure turned to Edric and finally spoke, in a voice that was both young and old. "There is no door." Edric nodded slowly. He understood more than he expected. "But I may pass through." The figure smiled, a slow, warm smile. "Only if you remember how." They stepped aside. Edric approached the wall. He reached out and placed his palm flat against the cool stone. It pulsed beneath his skin. Once, twice, then silence. He closed his eyes and let the memories come. Not sharp, not in words, but in images. A feather on a sill, a compass pointing nowhere, a pool that showed the sky's heart, a voice in silver ink. You are not alone. A presence in the hearth's warm breath, the spiral star, the key. And slowly, ever so slowly, the stone beneath his hand began to soften. No sound, no shift of stone, just a sensation, like mist turning to curtain, like curtain turning to air. When he opened his eyes, the wall was gone. Before him stretched a narrow corridor of woven branches, tall, arched, green and gold with age and moonlight. Tiny blossoms floated in the air, scentless, glowing faintly with light not from sun nor star. It was a passage, alive, not built, grown, and waiting. He stepped inside. The air changed immediately, not in temperature, but in texture. as if each breath was being filtered through something ancient and gentle. His thoughts grew quieter. His heart beat slower. He felt, remembered. The cloaked figure remained at the entrance. They did not follow. They simply bowed. A deep, respectful walk gently. The story hears your steps. Edric returned the bow, then turned and walked forward. The corridor twisted, but not confusingly. Each turn felt familiar, like retracing childhood footsteps in a dream. He passed small alcoves lined with ivy, where moths slept on carved stones shaped like moons and teeth. He passed a basin where water reflected not his face, but the stars above. Even though the ceiling was closed with leaves, each step deepened his breath. Each breath deepened his stillness, until he reached the end, and there, a circle. Not a room, not a chamber, just a ring of trees wide and tall and white-barked, their roots weaving into a floor of moss so thick it muffled even the memory of footsteps. In the center, a pedestal, simple, stone, weathered, etched with one shape, the spiral star. Edric stepped forward and placed his pouch upon the stone. He withdrew the feather, the note, the scroll, his mother's book, and placed them, one by one, in a spiral around the pedestal's base. As he did, the trees shivered softly, not in wind, in recognition. Then he closed his eyes and placed both palms on the pedestal. The hush grew absolute, so still he could hear the sound of stars shifting above him. Not loudly, but like the whisper of parchment being turned by unseen hands. And in that hush, he felt a warmth rise through the stone, and a voice, not spoken, felt you have watched the stars. Now, let them watch over you, he smiled, and let the tears come. Silent, soft, not of sadness, not of joy, but of deep, sweet rightness, of arriving, of remembering something too ancient for words. The pedestal glowed faintly. The scroll unfurled. The book opened on its own. The feather lifted ever so slightly into the air, and the spiral shone. And you let your breath match the rhythm of the spiral. Let it turn slowly in your mind. Feel it behind your eyes. In the center of your chest, a slow unfurling. A warmth not from fire. A hush not from silence. The stars are watching over you now. You, too, have walked the corridor. You, too, have passed the wall that wasn't there. Sleep holds you now, gently. And the story waits to whisper its final secrets. You're resting so deeply now, deeper than breath, deeper than thought. The hush around you is full, not empty. It holds stories. It holds sleep. It holds you. Let the stillness become your blanket. Let the quiet shape around your limbs like a lullaby. You are safe. You are watched. You are part of the ancient story now. And our tale floats onward like a candle boat across starlit water, heading toward a crown not made of gold, but silence. Sir Edric stood in the center of the ring. The spiral pulsed gently beneath his hands, like the heartbeat of the land itself. Above, the canopy opened just slightly, and he saw the stars peeking through. Bright, unmoving, ancient. The pedestal glowed, and slowly, one by one, the offerings around it for the scroll, book, and pouch began to lift. They rose without sound, not jerkily, not by magic that wanted to be seen, but gently, as if they had simply grown lighter than air. They hovered in the space above the stone, and turning slowly, forming a circle, a crown, not solid, but full of space and meaning. The feather bent to shape one point, the scroll another, the star stone a third. His mother's book, open, fluttering softly, formed the fourth, and a fifth point came from the hush itself. Nothing visible, just presence, and as it joined the others, the crown was complete. The trees shivered again. The moss brightened in hue. The stars blinked. Once, in rhythm, and Edric felt something open inside him, like a doorway in his chest. Not to let anything out, not to let anything in, but to say, this has always been here. The crown lowered itself and hovered above his head. He did not move. He did not bow. He simply breathed, and in the next breath, it gently touched his brow, not with weight, but with knowing. And in that moment, memories not his own began to pass through him. He saw monks drawing maps in candlelight with powdered lapis and crushed gold leaf. He saw women in gardens, studying the moon's shadow in bowls of still water. He saw children laying on hillsides, naming the stars, not in Latin, but in lullabies. He saw an old knight, very much like himself, standing beneath a tree, whispering to the stars. Each image passed like a breeze, cool, soft, never lingering, and with each came a feeling, not knowledge, but trust that not all answers must be found, that watching is sometimes enough, that naming the stars does not trap them, it honors them. And so too, with people, the crown did not remain. It lifted once more, the pieces unweaving gently into the air. The feather floated downward, coming to rest at his feet. The scroll rolled itself again and returned to his hand. The pouch settled softly on the pedestal. The book closed gently, like a parent tucking in a child. And the fifth piece, the invisible one, remained in the air for just a moment longer, then drifted into him. He closed his eyes, let it land, let it root, and said nothing. When he opened them again, the clearing had changed, not drastically, just subtly. The trees were brighter at the edges. The moss hummed slightly beneath his boots. And in the air, a deep, peaceful rightness, as if everything had exhaled together. He knew it was time to go, not because anything pushed him away, but because the moment had been completed, the gift had been received, and now he would carry it. He bowed to the ring, to the trees, to the spiral, and as he turned back down the corridor of branches, he felt a warmth between his shoulder blades. Not heat, but a sense of being accompanied. Not followed, not watched, accompanied. The path back did not feel long. It folded beneath his feet like a trail being remembered, not walked. The trees whispered his name, but not the one spoken aloud. The deeper one, the one he had never known, but always carried. When he stepped beyond the moss wall, the cloaked figure was gone, only the staff remaining gently against the stone. He picked it up. It was lighter than it looked, and warm, like it had been waiting for him all along. He walked back through the forest, through the grove, past the pool, still reflecting stars, no longer visible, back to the tree on the hill, where the parchments were still nestled at the root. He added one more, with ink that shimmered like silver moonlight. It read, "The story is not over, but the watching has become the way, and you feel the crown of stillness above you now. Not heavy, not seen, but present, made of quiet, made of breath, made of every soft thing you've ever carried and not known how to name. You are a watcher, you are a witness, and that is enough. Let yourself rest now. Let your own stars spiral gently within you, and let their silence speak volumes. This is the softest part of the story. Let your thoughts fade like ink in candlelight. Let your limbs sink, as if the bed beneath you were the mossy floor of a twilight forest. Breathe in, long, slow, and weightless. Breathe out, like a leaf falling. You are safe. You are stilled. You are arriving at the dream's last doorstep. And as we return, one last time, to the world of stars and silence, a secret waits to be revealed. Sir Edric returned to the tower with no haste. The road welcomed him gently. The trees did not crowd. The wind hummed softly between the leaves. The sky above was a soft wash of indigo, layered with clouds shaped like sleeping lions and drifting ships. When he reached the hill, the tower looked just as he had left it, but it felt different. Not because it had changed, but because he had. It no longer seemed empty. It no longer seemed like a waiting place. Parchment, an old flame. It was now a keeper of things unspoken. He paused, waiting, of memories, of light. He opened the wooden door and stepped into cool shadow. The air smelled faintly of lavender. The walls greeted him like old friends. The spiral staircase hummed softly beneath his steps. And when he reached the observatory at the top, for the sky was there, full, unbroken, glittering, he opened his mother's book and placed it gently on the desk. Next to it, the invisible map glowed not faintly, too. He unrolled the scroll, and for the first time, but fully, he lit a small fire in the hearth. Clear paths, bright lines, and in its center, a star. No longer stone, but real, pulsing with life. He smiled and whispered, "You found your way home." That night, not to warm the room, but to give the stars a dance, to watch. The flames crackled softly, not loudly. The first time she handed me the quill, just enough to remind him of old stories, of flickering taverns, of lullabies beside the chimney bricks. He sat in his carved wooden chair and tilted his head to the window and began to speak. Not aloud, not with voice, but from within, to the stars. He named them gently one by one, not by their official titles, but by what they reminded him of. That one looks like the curve of the river near the abbey. That one, the eye of a horse I once cared for. And that one is her smile. Each name a thread, each thread part of a larger, invisible weaving. And then something happened, softly, unexpectedly. One of the stars blinked, once, twice, and then a new one appeared beside it. He leaned forward. Was it always there? No. This one was new. And then another, and another, forming a line, then a curve, then a shape, the spiral forming in real time across the sky. He gasped softly, not in fear, in awe, because the stars were speaking back, not in words, not in sound, but in arrangement, in presence. Each new light a response, each constellation a sentence, each glow a whisper. We see you, too. And in that moment, Edric did not feel small. He did not feel far from anything. He felt within the sky, within the stars, within a great listening that had always been. He placed a hand over his heart and whispered, "Thank you for watching." He did not need to record the shapes that appeared. He would remember, because they were not written in books. They were written in him. That night, he slept by the window, blanket drawn high, fire dimmed to ember, pouch tucked beneath his pillow, and just before sleep took him, he heard something, a voice, not outside, not even inside, but beneath it all, a deep, gentle presence like the earth breathing through dreams. It said, "You counted us, now we count you." And he smiled in his sleep, because, yes, he was being counted, not measured, cherished, and you. Yes, dear listener, you are being counted to every breath, every flicker of thought, every softness you carry, even when the world is hard. The stars see it, they have always seen it, and they respond in their own quiet way. Let them count you now. Let them chart your soul across the velvet sky. Let yourself drift, like a feather on hush, like a flame curling into dream. The night holds you. The story has ended, but your sleep continues, and in it, the spiral glows on. Sleep well, sweet watcher. You are home. You are seen. You are counted.